Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics, brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and I'm here with a special episode recorded at this year's New York Comic Con. It's with the cartoonist and the artist of the deservedly beloved Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. It's Rosemary Valero-O'Connell, and it's a fun chat about her art, putting this book together, handling the whole comic herself art-wise, and more. Give it a listen, and shouts to First Second for helping me set this one up. Here it is. Yo, everybody, this is David Harper at New York Comic Con, and I'm here with the Ignatz Award-winning artist of Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, Rosemary Valero-O'Connell. Rosemary, how is the con going? You just did a signing. Is it going amazing? How's it going so far?
I have yet to have a bad experience at one of these conventions are still, and I hope that they will be forever. I hope I never, lose this sort of like bright-eyed idea of them. But it's been wonderful. It's been amazing. I mean, the signing is just like a succession of people that really like your work and want to say nice things to you. So it's hard for it to be bad.
Yeah. I was like kind of thinking about it, and like your last few weeks have been kind of crazy because you went to SPX and you guys won 3 Ignatz Awards, including Outstanding Artist. Yeah. Incredible.
One of the best nights of my life.
Your Kickstarter was like fully blessed, super blessed.
Yeah.
Included by me. I'm backing it.
Thank you.
I don't know. I mean, like, is this like, this is time, I talk to a lot of artists, and it's like, this takes away from the board, this takes away from work. What is this time like? Is it really exciting? Do you get jazzed about it still, or what is it like?
I mean, this is everything that I have ever wanted to do and everything that I've ever wanted to be. And I, like, it's this entire year, basically. I finished Laura Dean, technically, at the very beginning of this year. And so this whole period from sort of, like, the rest post-book to the actual like release of the book to everything that has come after. I mean, we've been incredibly fortunate. I feel like with the reception it's had has just felt like this. I just feel very lucky and very humbled to get to actually, kind of bask and kind of enjoy this thing that took me a very long time to make and that took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to make. So it feels, I'm feeling very fortunate that I'm kind of getting to ride this wave and that people seem to enjoy it and that people seem to be responding to this thing that I really feel like I, put a big chunk of myself into.
It was 2 years, right?
It was 2 years, yeah. I was a senior in college when I started it, and I finished it in, like I said, I think in December of last year is when I did like the final edit.
See, that's one of the funny things is, I look through the book relentlessly to find out who did everything. And then I find, eventually I found on Twitter that you did it. Like everything besides, you lettered it, you colored it, you did everything. I mean, that's incredible. And like, I'm like looking back on my college experience and just between social life and classes, I could barely even fathom existing. Like, how did you balance all that? Was that difficult?
Oh, I didn't balance it. I really didn't.
No sleep.
The last year, like senior year of college for me was a nightmare, but also incredible because this book was kind of my getting this opportunity was kind of my confirmation that like maybe I can, I went to college, I have a BFA in comic art. Like this is all that I wanted to do, and getting this opportunity sort of at the very end of my college career was kind of my ticket to actually be able to do this and to be able to like build a life around this. So it was a lot, and it was a lot of work, but this is really, there's been no other thing that I have been as motivated to dedicate my life to as comics. So for me, the work felt very worth it. And it was like, if there's anything that I'm going to spend all of my hours doing, let it be this thing that I love to do more than anything else in the world.
Well, and you loved Mariko's work. You loved
Oh my God.
I mean,
yeah.
I read that when you first, you read it, like you wept because you were like, it's a special book, and like I've heard about the experiences you have during signings and the stories people tell. It's like it's an important book. Why was this so important for you to take on as a creator?
Well, I've said it basically any opportunity that I get, but Skim was one of the pieces of work that made me decide that I knew I wanted to tell stories for a living. I thought I wanted to be a writer, but I also loved drawing, and Skim was the thing that made me realize that comics can do something that feels so infinitely special to me, and there's such rich ground to tell these stories that can really, like take you apart. And And it was kind of a turning point in my life because I decided, okay, I don't know if I have the chops to be a cartoonist professionally, but I have to try, because if I can make something that can affect another person the way that Skim affected me, like, what could possibly be better than that? So when I got the email from Callisto, who's my editor now at First Second, being like, hey, we have this script from Mariko Tamaki. Would you be interested in testing for this? Like, if you can make the time. It was like a literal, like, not even a dream come true, because I hadn't even, like,
it was in the process
like a dream
of
a dream of, like, I wouldn't even think that this would be a possibility for me.
Yeah.
So I had to be the one to tell this story. Like, I just did.
Okay, now we're going to get into fanboy time. So I told you beforehand that a lot of my questions I wrote down were just like these. I was like reading it on the plane again, and I just kept writing notes in my notes thing on my iPhone, and I was just like, this is a thing I like, this is a thing I like. I'm like, I need to write
so
less
kind
down.
of you.
So I want to talk about, for you as an artist, like character acting,
Sure.
like life of the characters. Like, all the characters have their own style, all of them have their own life. Like, there's this one scene that I really love where Buddy is telling Freddie that she needs to pay attention to Doodle because Doodle is going through something, and there's these three buddies right there. But the acting and like all the life to it just feels really fully alive.
Thank you.
For character acting, like, what is the key for you when it comes to bringing a character to life, like from character acting to style? Is there like an approach when you're developing it, like figuring these characters out?
I mean, for this story in particular, these characters live in our world. Like, they are people that inhabit the world that we inhabit, and I wanted that to feel present, and I wanted that to feel real, and I wanted them to feel like people that people that you could reach out and touch. And I think just a part of me wanting to give them that. In the script, they felt like such three-dimensional, well-rounded people that it felt sort of integral to the story being everything that it could be, that I was able to kind of give them that texture and give them that. And a lot of that, I think, comes from specificity in dress, in expression, in just anchoring them in something real. And I also, to be fair, I'm really inspired by a lot of cartoonists and a lot of comics, but I also, like, a huge chunk of my sort of artistic formation came from animation. And so there's a lot that I really appreciate about what animation brings to the table in terms of it being a vehicle for storytelling that I try to kind of carry into comics. And a lot of that is sort of that minute moment-to-moment shifts. I don't know, I think those can be really powerful moments in when you're just watching someone's face change or watching these, like, tiny movements, tiny bits of body language that really give a lot away about what a person is experiencing.
Yeah, like, I think the animation background I can see in a lot of the ways that you, like, choose shots. Like, there's this one shot I really love. My wife is an architect, and I was showing her, I was like, look at this environment she created. It was Doodle and it was Freddie sitting outside of Tony's. And you could have, like, shown it from the other side of the booth, but instead you showed it from outside, and you had all of, like, the little, like, succulents and, like, cactus or cacti like sitting there and everything, and it frames it really nicely, but it also puts like a distance between you and the reader. It's like a subconscious thing, and it's like, I don't know, you can kind of you can see that, and like those are really like filmic choices, things that people don't really often do in comic art. Why, I guess, like when it comes to environments, because you also do like landscapes and buildings so well. Why is it important to put so much detail into that? Because it gives a lot of richness to that world.
I guess for me, I think a part of it is that the work that I respond to the most when I am reading comics and when I'm sort of like choosing what I engage with is like work that I can walk into, like work that is so lushly populated. Like, it isn't just the implication of a world, it is a world. And I really wanted that to be just, besides sort of the design element, because I think it really can add a lot to sort of your page as a whole, to sort of populate it like that. It felt, again, it kind of comes back to wanting to really anchor these characters in a real place. The book is set in Berkeley, and it's like a lot of the plants. We went to Berkeley and we did like basically like photo shoots.
I was going to say,
with banana leaves and stuff like that. So part of it was just wanting anyone that is familiar with the Bay and anyone that kind of like knows this part of the world to really feel like we're doing it justice and we're being truthful to like who lives there, how do they live, like what is their world like, and also just I love these characters and I want to give them a lovely place to exist in. Like I want you to feel, I think it helps you connect a little bit. I think every little bit of detail that you can add in a story like this, I think helps form a connection between you and the characters.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big part as to why people have connected in the way that they have to the book, is because they feel real. They feel like this could be me. That's something I'm going through. And that's always a really powerful thing. But I do have a theory about you and Mariko, though.
Ooh.
I feel like you both really loved V. In particular, the character. I don't know why. It was just every time she came on into the book, it just felt like there was like a light behind her. But maybe because like she represented almost like this is an alternative life.
Totally. I mean, she's kind of an escape. She's also kind of like an uninvolved third party that comes in and kind of shines light on what the situation is. She's like, I don't know, she's potential and she's future, kind of. She's like, here's a relationship that has nothing to do with where you're at. Here's like this thing. So much of this book is Freddie being so deep inside of herself that she can't see anything else. And Vi is kind of like a, let's step outside that. Like, let's meet new people. Let's see the rest of the world. Yeah.
I just totally failed my mutant power. I said before that my mutant power was pronouncing names, and I said V instead of Vi.
Either way. We're not picky.
Going back to like what you were saying about like making all these lives feel really realized, I loved like Freddie's room was just, but that's one of the interesting things is like Mariko's choice to like script it so like the character, like the dolls and stuff would talk and have kind of commentary. It made her room feel like it was almost like they were her defenders. It was like they were like there to like be like the chorus who speaks to her. And I love that because I don't know. It felt like a room that somebody would actually live in, and that really adds a lot.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I think teenagers build like personal palaces a lot, or sort of like nests, I guess. I know I did very much. So I wanted, that felt very like a staple of teenagerhood that I needed to kind of explore and add to Freddie.
Did you create all the hybrid animals, or were those partially scripted?
I did a lot of just like Googling weird old vintage toys and like Beanie Baby. So many people out there are like making their own like Beanie Baby hybrids and fusions, which is cool. It was like monster design almost, which is kind of cool.
The last one was beautiful. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So I want to talk about the lettering, because I feel like that's one of the slept on things from this, that you lettered this. So when it comes to approaching a book as an artist, as a colorist, as a letterer, what advantages does that provide you to kind of have like a holistic control of like the visuals? Does that give you some advantages?
Yes, it is the only way that I like to work, just because I am a very controlling person, I guess, about sort of like what my final product looks like. Like, if it's terrible, I want it to be terrible because I made every choice and that was the best I could do, you know? And if it's great, I want it to be great because I did a good job. And I, the way I like to approach a page or a spread is as like, whatever it needs to be to further the story, but as also like a piece of design. And when you have control of the lettering and of, the text is part of that. Like, the text is a huge part of that. So I don't ever want it to feel like it's an afterthought, because it is, when you take in the page as a whole, like you are taking in every single element of it. So, and I don't know, I feel like it's a space to convey a lot of emotion. It's a space to be kind of playful. I don't know. It's not my favorite part. My favorite part is drawing, but but it's a fun little way to add like an extra sheen to what you're doing.
Well, and it complements it too, because it's like if it's all done by one hand, like I talk to people about sound effects.
I think it gels better.
Yeah, it's like if you can tell if it's done by somebody else's line, and if it doesn't match it. And like there's this one part where I think Freddie was just like something upsetting happened, and like her speech bubble was almost like a melting ice cream cone, and it's just like that type of thing. It's like you can match emotions in the way that you letter it and the way you do the balloons and everything. I think that's great. So why pink is the accent color?
Everyone is so into the pink, and I love that, because it was there's, I feel like, a couple different reasons. The primary one is basically when I was testing for this book, one of the things I had to do to test was to do these character designs. And I just kind of chose to do them in black and white and with a pink accent, just as like I don't know. I don't even know why. And
so this was a thing from the jump, from like your tryout.
But also, I mean, it sort of felt, I think thematically it works really well. Sure. I mean, it's a book about romance. It's a book about passion. Pink harkens to all of that. But there is, I think, also, we can think of the pink as maybe being a rose-tinted glass type of thing, or like the pink as being kind of like an easy entry point, or like an easy sort of like visual thing to consume that maybe like leads you into sort of the not so nice parts of the story. And I also like pink is my favorite color, so
Sure.
there's the easy answer.
The personal bias. Yeah, you're like, I just like pink.
I just like it. I just think it's neat.
So I'm gonna get into some nitty gritty ridiculousness.
Let's do it.
And okay, this is funny because it's an audio podcast, but if you have Laura Dean keeps breaking up with me in front of you, turn to the second
Please
page.
turn your books.
I would love to ask you about this panel in particular because I love the choice. It's a all pink bottom left panel of Freddie by herself, very small in the bottom left corner. So when it comes to laying out a page and figuring out the storytelling and everything like that, why do you make choices like that? Is that trying to reflect her like her emotional standpoint, or?
Yeah, I mean, the pink is an accent color a lot of the time. In some pages, it is just sort of a design thing of like, let me lead your eye here, let me focus you on this. But it also ended up being sort of like a a signifier of when we are going inside, kind of like a marker of interiority. And I think in that panel specifically, it's meant to sort of, Freddie is entering, the space of sort of like, of Laura Dean, of thinking about Laura Dean, of entering, of looking at her phone, of waiting for this contact. Right. So I don't know. It's kind of cool to get to talk about paneling choices because a lot of it is very sort of like gut. This is what this moment feels like to me, and this is the best way I can think of to visually express like how this feels, like what this. So yeah, I don't know. It's she's very small in the first part of this book. She's very, I don't know.
She's not feeling herself yet.
Yeah, she's vulnerable in the first part of the book.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think is really interesting about a lot of these like smaller, like things that I guess are not as showy for artists is like when you get to layouts and colors and even lettering and things like that, it's like these are all like kind of subconscious like indicators that you're not really thinking about. And when I think about that, like I see myself in her, like in just like that experience of like loss or like feeling lost as you wait for somebody and you're hoping for something. And it makes you feel really small. And it's really interesting seeing even just in the layouts and the panel placements and everything like that, how you can kind of control emotions in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, panel layouts are where the storytelling happens in comics. Like it's how you control time and how you control the flow of a scene. Like it's I think the most important aspect is sort of like how you decide to structure how time and emotion happens in your book.
Right. So when you and Mariko worked on it, so you get a script.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
At that point, was it just carte blanche, you figure this out, or was there more specific instructions for like certain parts or all of it, or how did it work?
I mean, she was like an absolutely phenomenal collaborator in that like I got the script and there were sort of like very loose kind of like character ideas and like this is kind of what I'm thinking for this and this, but she from the jump was like, you are going to be spending at least twice, maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times as much time with this story and with these characters as I am. Like, do what feels good and do what feels right for the story, which is an incredible amount of trust to show in your artist, and felt, made this project so exciting and feel like it was so, like it was my story too, was that she really let it be. And we went back and forth a ton, and, things in the script changed because I felt like they should. Things in the art changed because she felt like they should. Like, it was very much a, like, we are a team trying to bring the story into the world, and we're each, coming from our respective backgrounds and coming from our respective points of view. But, like, it's shifted a lot. Like, it was a living thing until it was, like, done. Like, we really... Because, you spend so long on a story, you really want to make sure that you're doing right by it in every possible way.
Well, I mean, I read this... I talked to Faith Erin Hicks about this recently, and it's really interesting. Like I love Faith's work so much, and you read like one of the Nameless City books, and you read it, and you're just the way that Faith does comics is there's so much energy that you just want to keep flowing, and so it's like a 45-minute read, and then you're like. You talk to Faith, and it's like that took me a year to draw.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating.
Heartbreaking realities of comics.
You don't look at this and you think 2 years, but I mean, it's just you lived with this. So I mean, I think that's it's a very generous creator or writer who offers like that, like what Mariko was saying.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, one other specific thing, I'm not going to find it because it's very far in the back, and I'm not going to get into details. But let's say that Freddie found herself. And the panel is done very heavily in white. Like her hands are completely whited out. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about. Oh no, I'm gonna have to open this up.
Maybe
it's very far in the back. Anyways, but
I love how it was just like, yeah, I spent so much time with this book and now I can't remember.
Like, what is this comic? Anyways, but so I don't know. I just think that some of these, man, come on, where are you at, Laura Dean?
Well, keep talking. It'll come to me.
Anyway, so it's a panel when she and Laura Dean kind of go to a climax in their relationship, and it's like you make the choice to make Freddie's hands completely white, and like almost the entire page is like completely white. And I just think that is such a bold choice because it's like you're almost like I don't know. I read it almost as like it's a subconscious decision to say, like. The way that we represented Freddie was like saying like, this is me being done. It's like, I'm free now. And like, that's me. Like, it's funny how you can read these comics and just have like total conjecture into like how these things work.
No, I love that though. That's, yeah.
Well, there's always the idea that like or readers are like the third collaborator or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Anyways, I apparently cannot find this page. I should have bookmarked this. Okay. Well, we will move on from that. I did want to ask about First Second because I'm a massive fan of First Second.
I am too.
And it's like Callista. You mentioned Callista.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, it's Callista Brill. She's like a superstar. I can imagine her hair because it's like such a thing. But what was it like working with First Second? Because their books aren't just, it's like when you hear First Second, you know it's going to be quality, but also like the production value of this book that is just like astonishing.
So, I mean, I owe really kind of everything to First Second. I mean, they very literally, they made my dreams come true. And my first encounter with Callista was when even before Laura Dean, even before all of this, I met her at MoCA because someone gave her a copy of a mini that I had made, which was an old comic of mine. And she basically approached me at the show, gave me a business card, and was like, hey, when you're ready to get in the industry, send me an email. This is really like
That's amazing.
No, I like crouched behind my table and just kind of like open mouth sobbed for a while because it felt like, oh, okay, this is like someone is reaching out a hand to me very literally and being like, hey, we like what you do. Do you want to keep doing it? And they've been that same level of sort of like care and attention and just like treating me like I was someone special and someone whose work was worth celebrating. That's been my entire relationship with them, and with not only with Callista, with Kiara, another one of our editors on this book, with Mark, with every single person who's like interacted with me throughout my time with them. They've been really excellent to me, and I'm very excited to keep working with them.
Yeah, that's the dream. I mean, it's amazing though, because it's like, I know you had done work before this and you've been doing your you've been nominated for an Eisner, 2 Eisners during like the process of this being made. But at the same time, it's just like having like belief from somebody like Callista Brill. That's got to be really meaningful to you as a cartoonist.
I felt like she just kind of like plucked me out of school and was like, hey, you get to do this. Come on. Like, which I am still every day. I feel like waiting for like the bucket of pig's blood or for someone to like jump out from behind the bushes and be like, haha, just kidding. This isn't real. None of this is real.
That would be a really elaborate prank.
I know,
like,
yeah.
We're gonna nominate you and like give you a bunch of awards.
We're gonna spend a lot of money. It's gonna be
we're gonna get you in there.
Yeah.
Well, the last question I want to ask about is, I love that in 2019, so Laura Dean, is obviously a big thing with First Second. You did, Don't Go Without Me, the short box Kickstarter. You've done a lot of things that are kind of doing things the way seemingly that you want to do them, or like the types of projects that reflect you. Do you find, this is kind of like not a non-question question, but I just think it's amazing that you can like tell the comic stories you want to tell and find a way to make it work in 2019. Like, what kind of freedom does that provide you, and like what challenges does that provide you as well?
I have had an incredible amount. It is by sheer luck and privilege that I am able to do this. This was, I think, the dream for a lot of people, is just to be able to do what they want to do and to have free reign. And I very much, I'm not delusional about the fact that like I have been fortunate enough to be in these circumstances because, the right person saw my work at the right time, and I had, the privileges in my life to be able to prepare myself for the right person to see my work at the right time, to go to art school and to spend all this time just devoting myself to comics. So I feel astoundingly lucky every day that things have worked out for me the way that they have. I hope to continue it. I mean, I hope to do right by the people that have put faith in me and to be able to sort of get to a point where I'm not only making the work that I want to make, but also can find a way to sort of like facilitate and make it easier for other people to also make the work that they want to make, because there's so many. I mean, I mostly just feel baffled that I somehow get to do this, because I know so many people and there's so many incredible voices in comics, on the periphery of comics, just like telling stories, drawing pictures, writing words right now. Like I don't know. I feel very unworthy sometimes, but I'm very, very lucky that enough people have sort of seen something of value in my work, and that they've let me kind of do what I want to do, and, make the kind of work that feels important to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really interesting because there's so many different ways you can get in today. Like one person I talked to, Brenna Thumler, she did a book called Sheets through Lionforge, and it's a beautiful book, and she's just a phenomenal cartoonist. Yeah. It was like she had done art for one graphic novel before, but it was the first one she had done completely by herself, and it feels like she's been making comics her whole life. Yeah. But the amazing thing is she didn't even grow up reading comics. Like, it was like something she got into way later, and she had the opportunity to come up. And I find it, she actually has a lot of the same feelings, where it's like sometimes you feel like, maybe it's like you have questions about yourself as to whether or not you earned it or anything like that. But it's interesting. But at the same time, it's like, all you can do is prepare yourself for those opportunities, right, and do your best when you get there.
Right. Yeah.
But this has been awesome. That's all the questions I have for you now. Rosemary, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you so much. These are excellent questions. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with cartoonist Rosemary Valero-O'Connell. You can find her on Twitter at HiRosemaryHello, on her website, hirosemary.com, and her work in Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me with Mariko Tamaki at First Second. As a heads up, Off Panel is once again brought to you by Sketch.com. Check out the new version of the site and consider subscribing for access to all of the site's content and its members-only forum. If you're a fan of Off Panel, make sure to check it out on Patreon. If you back the show on there, you not only support it, but you get early access to each week's podcast, access to weekly content, and more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Off Panel on iTunes or Spotify and give the show a rating and review while you're at it. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by liking on Facebook at /Sketched. That's SKTCHD. Follow on Twitter at @SketchComic or following me at @SliceFriedGold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Carl Mizell, Danny Ollie, Paul Salates, Litwin Studios, Akil Wilson, Andrew Nikovich, Nathan House, Alex Dimitropoulos, Terry Dodson, Troy Jeffrey Allen, Liana Kangas, Keegan Ray, Milton Lawson, Wesley Giff, Sean Kirkham, Harry Small, Alistair Ross, Julio Anta, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwan, Connor Farner, Vida Ayala, JDC and Matt Gagnon, Aditya Bidikar, Tara Ferguson, Dave Slusher, Kieran Mark Antonio, WMQ Comics, Akil, Kokachi, Phil White, Ben Becker, Sean Pinello, Kent Heidelman, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, Nick Michelin, David Kelly, Rob Wilson IV, Nick Polito, Owen McCready, Brendan Fletcher, Gary Maloney, Jonathan Nilsson, Matthew Groom, Jason Massey, Adam Bogart, Xavier Files, Matthew Taylor, Tyler Turner, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Braldy, Ira James Udaskin, Modern Magic Stories, Nick Hall, Bobby Angus, Bjorn Basin, John Hendricks, Steve Anderson, Phil Knoll, Ian Maxfield, Cliff Chang, Benjamin Shipper, Carl McMahon, Chris Palmer, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Kat McKenzie, Greg Rucka, Adam Highfill, Fiona Staples, Chris O'Halloran, Mark Abnett, Mike Murphy, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonacos, Norbert Nicklow, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Off Panel's theme song just for the show. Check out their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.